What's up, everybody? We are back. Oh my goodness, we are back. We are talking the MCU Reviewed here. It's been a long time coming. We've not done this show in about 2 years. This was our bread and butter, especially in the early days of the pandemic. We decided we were going to rip through the MCU, but here we are. It's 2024, different world. We've got like 15 extra Marvel movies that have come out since that time. That's only a little bit of an exaggeration. But today, we are talking Spider-Man Far From Home, the last of the Infinity Saga, the game or the movie that came out right after Endgame. Oh my goodness gracious, we've got a lot to catch up on. We're going to talk about that. We're going to catch you up on the state of the MCU Reviewed, where we stand, where we're going as we move forward. Of course, most prominently, our rankings and where they stand as of today. I'm Josiah Leroy. We are live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok? Maybe?
Not the last two. YouTube and Twitch right now.
Oh gosh. All right. So we're batting 500 there. Anyway,
Hall of Fame, best player in baseball history.
Done. With me, Mr. Marvel Studios. Love that shirt. It looks good on you, buddy. John
Thanks,
Fick.
sir.
How we doing, John?
I'm doing great. It is so cool to be back to the show. Like our goal was something to do during the pandemic. It's like, hey, we're home. Like, let's figure something out. We want to rewatch the Marvel movies. Let's do a podcast and let's rank them. That sounds awesome. I talked about consistency with Busy Sticks. We were recording this show every Monday for like 15 weeks straight. We missed like one when it was in the middle of the pandemic. We had nothing to do. And the goal was to get to Endgame, and we did it. And this almost feels like a season 2 of the MCU review. Like we kind of put a pin in it and said, like, we did it. We did the thing. But if Marvel's going to keep making movies, why not keep ranking them and reviewing them? I'm excited to be back.
It is the perfect time to come back, no doubt about it. I'm excited to talk about the entire thing here and even the state of the MCU to some degree. But of course, with us, not Rashawn. Don't forget, he was recast.
You sure about that?
You sure about that? We've also got Mr. John Serrato. JT, are you ready to talk some Spider-Man and how much you love this movie?
I am ready to not do that whatsoever, but I am happy to be back for season 2 of the new way of thinking here. I know overall, I think a few of us, including I don't know if we're talking about that yet, are excited to talk. We are okay. All right, Rashawn as well are kind of been a little kind of not too interested in the recent MCU, but it'll be nice to see where it lands with everything else, right? So I'm excited. I'm excited. I don't hate Spider-Man Far From Home.
We'll get into that. We got a whole lot of conversation to have to hop into what JT alluded to. Rashawn parted ways from the MCU Reviewed about halfway through, and JT took over. I think your first movie was Ant-Man, if I'm not mistaken. You hopped in. Yeah. It was Ant-Man. But Rashawn's back with the Geekiverse. He's doing stuff with us again. He's a full crew member, and he will absolutely be back on the MCU Reviewed. He just wasn't available today, so it will be a 4-man show. The man who recast Rashawn will still be here as well, and it'll be the 4 of us. That's going to be a
multi-universe Geekiverse. Now,
it is,
you know?
And I'm the variant.
You guys are variants of each other. Who was the original? I mean, we'll never know, but that's going to be fun. Like that was such a cool thing to you have Rashawn pass the torch of his seat on the show to you, and now to have both of you back for another long journey, because they're going to keep making these movies. Like I always say, there's already 12 that we need to catch up on, maybe more, whatever. It's going to be a blast.
So if we do, we talked about it, and this is our intention. We've said that the Geekiverse is back with a roar here in 2024. That rhymed well. But if we do 2 movies, so 2 MCU movies or episodes of this a month, we would catch up about in time for the only MCU movie coming out this year on the calendar, and that's Deadpool 3 in July, which, oh my gosh, give me that right now. So we'll sift through a lot of not so good stuff, some good stuff,
some great stuff,
bangers, right? And then we'll get to Deadpool 3 and see how it is. But John, why don't you catch us up, remind the viewers, or maybe the first time listeners and viewers here, what is the purpose of this when it comes to the ranking? What do the rankings look like? What's a snap versus a blip? So on and so forth.
All right, let's start at the top. Let's start at the most simple way possible. Let's go over our rankings. So we watch a movie every week. We're going in release order of the movies. We went from Iron Man 1 to Endgame, and we at the end of every episode we rank we rank where we want that movie to be. We have to come to a consensus, a majority, I should say, not a consensus, a majority as to how far the movie goes up the list, and that's kind of where that's at. So let's go over the rankings so far, then we'll explain some of the intricacies of the way we do it here. Number 1, we have Avengers Infinity War. Number 2, Endgame. 3, Ragnarok. 4, Civil War. 5, Homecoming. 6, Guardians Volume 2. 7, Black Panther. 8, Guardians Volume 1. 9, The Avengers. 10, Avengers Age of Ultron. 11, Winter Soldier. 12, Iron Man. 13, Iron Man 3. 14, Ant-Man. 15, Doctor Strange. 16, Iron Man 2. 17, Captain Marvel. 18, Captain America, the First Avenger. 19, the first Thor movie. 20, Ant-Man and the Wasp. 21, Thor, the Dark World. 22, The Incredible Hulk. Boys, it's getting hard to say this whole list. My mouth's drying up at this point because there's 22 films.
Beer.
Now, you might think that's the rankings, but it actually is not quite accurate. Because, fellas, if you remember, when we finished the MCU Reviewed, Josiah and I put Endgame at number 2, and JT used the snap, and he's like, I don't know. JT's like, I can go either way. I don't really care. I want the people to decide. I want the community to let us know what they think.
You remember that
between part 1 and part 2 of the finale because they sit at the top of our list. How cool would it be to let the community decide? And we did that, and we actually decided not to charge JT a snap for that. That happened. That poll went up. It was 49.5 to 50.1 or 50.5. And Avengers Endgame is our new number 1. Avengers Endgame does have Infinity War. There was 99 votes, almost dead even. One more vote for Endgame on that poll.
Clear recency bias.
And honestly, I'm mad about it. And if it didn't happen, I'm still mad about it. Like, it's just, I love it. I love it. They're both so good. I just didn't care.
They're both so good. It was a fun way to end that kind of like first run of the MCU Reviewed, and like we never really even planned on coming back to it, so we really kind of just left that out there in the ether. So like, to be continued. Will it actually be be continued? And it was. Right. So that's the true ranking. Endgame is 1. Infinity War is 2.
Crazy.
But we've talked about snaps. We've talked about stuff like that. So yeah, during the original run of the show, we had a fun little feature called a gauntlet snap, an infinity gauntlet snap. We all had 3 of them. And if we used the snap, we got to try to adjust the rankings. So basically, if we wanted one movie to hop another, they had to be like, touching. So in this example, you can see if I wanted Guardians 2 to be above Homecoming, if I wanted to go from 6 to 5, I would use one of my snaps, and I wouldn't get that automatically. It would go to a Twitter poll. So we'd put it on Twitter, and we would let people decide. We would retweet it. We would try to campaign for the one we wanted, and it would only flip the rankings if the poll was successful. We've had a couple of those. I think JT flipped Black Panther over Guardians Volume 1, and I tried to snap it back, and it was unsuccessful. So people really love Black Panther, so that's not changing. So that was the idea. With a new slate of films, we want a new slate of ways to manipulate the rankings, because we're never going to really agree on stuff. So we need those outs. This is post Endgame. This is post the Infinity Saga, sort of. So we're no longer calling these snaps. We're calling these blips now. So we all have 3 blips that we can use until we decide that we need more or whatever. When we go into like phase 9, whatever, for now we've got 3 more. We'll have fun with it. We all have 3, including Rashawn. So we can use those. They're fun. It's always a cool moment when like someone's like, the end of the episode, we're wrapping things up. Oh no, it's not over. Taking it to the polls.
So like my thing's doing an actual, like, what am I doing now? Still
I do the
blip,
same
or snap?
You literally have to disappear
All right.
for 5 years.
That should allow me to manipulate these rankings a bit. That's good.
So that's the gist of it. Those are our current rankings. Let's get into the movie.
Rashawn just pops up in my chair.
Oh my god, on your lap.
I don't know where.
Would lose it. Oh my god. Well, that's where we stand with everything. I'm curious to see, because they're with the next phase, we have phase 4 and we're in the middle of phase 5. Some of those movies are going to be divisive for sure. I know we'll see some blips, and it'll be exciting to see what that actually looks like. John, do we want to cover anything else and before we jump into really Spider-Man here?
I think that's it for the housekeeping. Let's talk about Far From Home.
All right, Spider-Man Far From Home. Fellas. So the movie comes out way long time ago to Galaxy Far Away. This is July of 2019. Do you guys have without looking, do you recall how it did it at the box office? If you had to put a number on it, what was the final gross run?
I think it was that stretch of like movies for Disney to do $1 billion. So I'm gonna go with like 1.3 billion.
Okay, JT.
700 to 800 million.
So this did 1.1 billion.
Wow.
This was a beast. This was on the heels again of Endgame a few months later.
And it's Spider-Man.
The Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
Yep. Those always do well. Disney had $7 billion movies that year. Absolutely bonkers. I believe Captain Marvel was one as well. So that's 3 from the MCU right there. You had Rise of Skywalker, you had Frozen 2, then there's a few others.
Lion King maybe was out the year too.
Lion King and Aladdin. That was it.
There you go. So
those
that's
remakes.
Insane.
What an insane year. It's funny to think this year there were no, or 2023, there were no $1 billion movies for Disney. It's a different time and a different discussion, by the way. But that was a beast. There was a lot of momentum there. Let's talk impressions and mix this maybe a little bit with, do you remember what your first viewing of this was, in theaters and so on and so forth. JT, why don't we actually start with you with this? Like, hit us with what you think about Spider-Man Far From Home.
So, at least with that, you're talking about the first, trying to remember the first view of it, right?
Yeah, like if there's anything from the first viewing that you remember with it,
I mean,
also how you feel about it today.
So I went into it obviously kind of excited to see what the next phase was, right? We hear in the trailers, the multiverse is coming and all this excitement is coming for it, right? And where are we who's the next big bad? Where's it gonna go from there? End up being not as good as I wanted it to be. I can't say I hate it, but and I'll dig further into why I think it's not. But it felt to me, and you guys, one of you said it earlier, I think, or both of you did, more of an epilogue, right? Kind of closing out that saga, that phase, moving on from Tony, showing the kind of effects of his sacrifice, and all good. But for me, one of the biggest thing I didn't like about it was it didn't really set up the multiverse, right? It was the whole facade of that being the case, and maybe that's kind of trickled down since then into what we are dealing with now, right, in the current MCU. So I mean, going into it, very excited. I don't really remember the theater experience, to be honest. I was kind of such at a peak with Endgame. I don't know if anything could have topped it, right? Like, there was nothing that was ever going to beat that experience. People screaming in the theater, so for me, it wasn't as exciting an experience.
JT, I get that. This, in my opinion, really was always an epilogue. It's Marvel Studios, but it's Sony involved as well. So I remember seeing that on the slate and being after Avengers Part 2 and being like, that's weird that they're ending that phase with Spider-Man. I get it logistically and from a business standpoint. From a movie standpoint, I think it was really a good epilogue. I don't think it's my favorite Spider-Man movie, but we'll get into that too. John, give me your thoughts. Do you remember that first experience? How do you feel about the movie?
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I think expectations kind of come into play in terms of where we're different on this, JT, because I never expected it to be the actual setup of phase 5 or phase 4. What, phase 5? Phase 4 was the end. Okay, so yeah, I never expected it to be the setup of the next phase. I always knew this was going to be an epilogue. I knew this was going to be the way Peter Parker is dealing with a world post Tony Stark, what's next for Spider-Man, and what I had hoped most is that we got a pretty contained, authentic Spider-Man movie, because we no longer had the stakes of a huge universe that we really had to work within, because the conflict was resolved, and we got that tenfold. This is, I'm probably with you, Joe. This isn't my favorite Spider-Man movie, but this might be one of the most authentically Spider-Man movies that exists. It is, at the end of the day, it is a story about him as a high schooler struggling to balance being Spider-Man with Peter Parker and failing and all sorts of fun stuff that we're going to get into. I don't really remember my theater experience. The only thing I really remember about the theater experience is the twist in the middle, which was like, you know, we knew something was coming, but I don't know if anybody really knew exactly what was coming. That was a pretty big twist that we're going to talk more about when we get to it. And then the end credit scene, I remember like the huge pop for that. That was, again, we're going to talk way more about that too, because like that was kind of like unprecedented, and that was the first of that we got without going into spoilers for a movie that we already saw, but whatever.
Yeah, well, you know, the movie is almost 5 years old now. We are going to talk spoilers throughout this entire thing. So if that bothers you, if you haven't seen Spider-Man Far From Home, this is your warning. We're going to talk about that. John, you know, I think I'm on the same wavelength as you in terms of this. I really enjoyed it though. Again, we'll see where it ranks as we talk about it later in the show for our official rankings. I don't anticipate this going all the way into our crazy top 10. I don't know that. But the film itself, again, Tom Holland does a masterful job of balancing that Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And then in the story, he lost his father figure, right? His hero. I love how much this mirrors Tony Stark's early journey. It's like almost like how we talk, George Lucas talked about Star Wars. There's poetry here. There's some symmetry. It rhymes. You had Iron Man 1 and what his journey looked like as a younger Tony Stark and where he went. And here you are. You've got Peter who goes through something similar yet very different, and a lot of it is Iron Man influenced, and we'll get into some of that just with my notes later on. But overall, you know, I like this movie. It's a good movie, and yeah, we're going to see where it ends up ranking. John, do we need a minute to queue up the trailer?
Ready to go, as long as you guys have it. You guys have it ready to go?
Yeah. So the quick thing here, if you know you're listening on the podcast, you'll just have to get through the next basically 2.5 minutes with us. But what we're gonna do is watch the trailer together. It's a lot of us, or sometimes we haven't seen these since the movie came out. Most times, I think we don't go back and watch that. This kind of became a thing on MCU Reviewed, and then Star Wars Reviewed after. What it was going back and seeing what that trailer looked like. I think in season 1, if you will, of MCU Reviewed, we saw how many trailers were different early on from what really was the tone in the final movie. And I think that changed as time went on a little bit here, but we're going to watch it together.
Yeah,
John, I'm going to pass it over to you.
For sure. And I think what's really fun about this is to like try to relive the hype of like what you felt when those trailers were coming out. And I think that is more impactful back in the Infinity Saga, back when we kind of weren't sure what was happening. Like I think the trailers and the hype, maybe that's just like an anecdote for where we are with the MCU right now, I guess. But yeah, let's get into this trailer. You guys both have it ready?
Ready?
All right, go ahead and play it.
Thank you, Spider-Man.
That was so good. Hey, sorry I'm late. Happy.
You look nice.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. New dress?
Yes, it is. How'd you know?
What just happened?
Planning a trip?
Mm-hmm. Going to Europe. School trip.
Did you get your passport?
Peter Parker here to pick up a passport, please.
Mini toothpaste? Pack your suit.
I just want to go on my trip with my friends. Europe doesn't really need a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You look really pretty.
Therefore, I have value.
No, that's not
I'm
right.
messing with you. You look pretty too.
I just want to spend some time with MJ. I think she really likes me, dude.
That reminds me when I first fell in love. I had just finished my film called.
So nice to finally meet you, Spider-Man.
You're Nick Fury.
Put some clothes on. Let's go for a ride.
Is he gonna be okay like that?
Might want to turn him over so he doesn't swallow his tongue.
I think Nick Fury just hijacked our summer vacation.
Awesome! You got gifts, Parker, but you have a job to do. Are you going to step up or not? You're all alone. You
friends are in trouble. What are you going to do about it?
You don't want any part of this.
Who is that guy?
He's like Iron Man and Thor rolled into one.
He's no Spider-Man.
What is it with you and Spider-Man?
What, he looks out for the neighborhood, has a dope suit, and I really respect him. Sup, dickwad?
So, yeah, that comes back to what we talked about with expectations. Like, man, that is a self-contained Spider-Man story that is all about kids on a high school trip. And like, I know the balance of Spider-Man versus Peter Parker is going to be at the forefront. Yeah, I was so excited when I first saw that. And talk about how Sony has, marketing control over these movies. They just told us the whole movie in the trailer. It's just like beat for beat the whole movie.
Right.
That gives us a lot there, right? Before I forget, how good is that rendition of the Spider-Man theme? Like,
Excellent.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. I think really a big reason this movie did so well, in addition to it being a Spider-Man movie by default, is it took the impossible, which was, what am I going to care about after Endgame? Possibly on the heels of Endgame, just like this, with the MCU, because everything that we had known for the prior 10 years was building towards that. This did it. John, you said it was kind of a self-contained Spider-Man story. Yeah, it's still connected to the big events that we just went through, the emotional roller coaster that was the last two Avengers movies. But it still separates itself in a nice way and finds a way to stay focused. And this could have been a messy film, especially coming off of Endgame. So all things considered, that trailer lends to a lot of that, and it doesn't hide anything either.
No.
JT, what do you think? You see that trailer? What do you think?
I mean, watching it again, I kind of got excited to watch it again. But I don't know. I mean, I kind of agree with the Sony perspective, right? They just seem to just throw everything at you, just and tell you exactly what's happening. But I don't know, like the movie just doesn't hit for me, man. I looking back at the trailer and then comparing it, what I watched and what I expected personally, right? You guys had your own expectation, of course, but it is not what I thought where I thought they would go, at least, right? So for me, it's hard to distinguish Spider-Man, to your point, as the neighborhood Spider-Man when he was so involved with like almost like Nick Fury said in the trailer, right? He's like, "You've been to space," like that for me. Like he's been part of all of it, right? It's just hard to distinguish that from, like, kind of split that up.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I get it. I thought they did a good job with like really showing us how not ready he was and how much of like Tony's prodigy he was, and basically was just there to follow Tony's commands during those movies. Like he didn't really have much agency. He didn't really make much of an impact without, like, I don't know, lucking into something or doing exactly what Tony told him to do. It wasn't like he was going toe to toe with Thanos and like, really establish himself as an Avenger.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
One of the most exciting things about this movie was to see how they handle, like, all right, this is a post Tony Spider-Man, and that was his role model, and that was like his guiding light into this world of being a superhero. So like, what does that look like? Do they propel him into, because like those were the rumors, who is the next core MCU character? Like, is it, we don't really know if it's going to be Thor. Like, who is it? Most of them are gone. Everyone's like, Spider-Man makes the perfect sense. Like, they've got this deal. He's so likable. He's so young. Like, he makes the perfect sense. And they give you like, they answer that question in the way that they need to. Like they tease that to you. Like they show you that he and the world in that universe are going through that same conflict. They're having that same question. Who's the next Iron Man? Is this Spider-Man kid going to live up to it? And I think they do a great job of like showing us that struggle. I love this movie. I love this movie.
Yeah, the more I talk about it, the more I get excited, for sure, with you guys. We're going to go through a few things here. We're going to go talk about our favorite non-title character. So anyone but Spider-Man, who was your favorite performer? We're going to talk about that moment. What was one moment that stuck out to you or was a favorite moment of the film? And then, of course, we're going to rank them as well. But before we do that, how many times have you guys seen this movie? It's an interesting thought, because we had our rewatches. We talked about it on the older MCU Re-Viewed I felt like I've rewatched so many of those movies so many times because every time a new MCU movie came out, I did a rewatch. Harder to do nowadays with close to 40 films, right? But back then, we're 20, not too bad. It's kind of manageable. But for me, I think I've seen this 3 times. I think I saw it in theaters. I think I saw it once when I bought it on 4K Blu-ray, and then last night in prep for this, which is kind of bonkers.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not for lack of quality, in my opinion. It's just that's all I've gotten to because we stopped doing this right around,
For
Endgame.
sure. For me, it's a bunch. It's probably like 5 to 7, like full sit down, like 100% attention.
Wow.
But there's a lot of throwing this one on in the background for me because I've said it before. I think probably earlier in the show too. Like I love like a good high school like trip movie. Like one of my favorite like the American Pie stuff, Euro Trip, something that I just picked like 2 R-rated examples, but like that camaraderie of like a high school trip, like I love that stuff, and that's something that I can kind of just throw on in the background while I'm like working or doing whatever. So like I've had this movie on a ton, but probably 5 to 7 like full sit down rewatches.
That's pretty good. JT, how about you?
So so I obviously was in theaters. I did an all Spider-Man rewatch sometime in the fall, and then this time, so 3 times.
All
Watched
right,
3
all right.
times.
So we're on the same page there. What do we get into favorite non-title character or performance? So who stands out in this movie for you? Who is your favorite that's not Peter Parker? John, you got an answer?
JT can go first. You can have him.
I had to go first.
You can have him.
Mysterio.
Yeah, well, it's the only answer.
That's the only answer. Mysterio, like all this, aside from the fact that he wasn't really a multiversal character, right? I think overall he was just like the revenge on Tony. Like I never thought that spin would come at all, right? I mean, maybe a little bit.
You knew that
Tony,
Mysterio.
but
You knew that Mysterio was not who he presents himself to be, and like he's not
100%.
he's not a good guy, obviously. But like, in what capacity, and how does that get revealed?
But-
Does it even get revealed in this movie? Like, those are the thoughts we have during the film.
It's almost like the acting within the acting by Gyllenhaal was like perfect, right? Like he played Mysterio, the multiversal character, so well. I thought it was real for a little bit during the movie. I'm like, oh, he's
100%.
fighting this guy. Like
Dude,
he's like another version that's not actually Mysterio,
Dude,
right?
I believe that 100%. When they first said that, I'm like, all right, we got our multiverse, and like Mysterio's a good guy, I guess. But then once I realized that like we're at the climax,
right?
Once I realized we're at the climax of like the fight, and there's an hour left in the movie, I'm like, oh, okay, something's up for sure.
Something's up, yeah, for sure.
That was in the manner that the twist happens is not one that I saw coming.
No.
I think we're all on the same page that Mysterio was going to be a thing, but like Jake Gyllenhaal is such a treat in this movie. I wish we got more of it. Like he's so good. He's so good as Quentin Beck. But I talked about this being not just an epilogue, but really the bookend, the perfect bookend in the Infinity Saga to Iron Man 1, all the way before it, 23 movies prior. What a tie-in with some of those throwaway side, not even characters, by the way, really, from Iron Man 1. When they showed that flashback, my jaw hit the floor.
So
they
cool.
were extras, basically.
Yeah, to be able to pull some of those actors, like Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps guy, like to be able to pull this. I think he was actually the only one who was a side character, but that was good enough to like show us that they care and they did this, and then the rest of them like was believable enough because they gave us that.
Right.
It was so good. And you know what? I got to say, in some executions of this movie, so in other universes, that would have fallen flat. Mysterio is just this guy.
This disgruntled Stark employee.
Can't you see so many people really, really being upset about that? Like they pulled that off, and that was dicey. That could have been bad.
To be fair, like when Gyllenhaal was announced as Mysterio, right?
Yeah,
I'm like, this might be a waste of talent for me. Knowing what Mysterio is in the comics and just in general, right? Even through some of the games and whatever.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, are they really like? He could be so much better. Like he ended up being perfect for the role.
right.
Period. I mean, without a question.
Like, yeah, like shouldn't they get this? Shouldn't they lock this guy up for the next big blockbuster that's going to be the Eternals coming out next year?
I know, seriously, right?
For me, obviously that would be my choice too. But if I pivot, I really like Zendaya in this movie. We start to get an evolution of who MJ is in this MCU. I loved that she retains her awkward qualities from Homecoming, but we see more of her now, and we see her and Peter starting to become a thing, but it just doesn't feel shoestringed. Their chemistry feels organic. They feel like they're really relationship building. And again, they're awkward high schoolers. It's really good. I like Zendaya a lot in this movie, and prior, I never disliked her, but I was never the biggest fan. So I thought that she had a really nice performance. And then, of course, we'll talk about No Way Home, but to me, it's just a slope. She continues to take MJ to a new level. And again,
Peter grew, she grew.
Yeah,
yes,
for sure.
They're an amazing, like, legitimate couple to me.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a great other pick. Because like, yeah, she was kind of just like another one of Peter's classmates that like happened to be named MJ, so we knew where the story was going in Homecoming. But this is where they really established that relationship, and yeah, she did a great job. That was great writing. I'm gonna go with one that's a little less impactful to the story and one that was just really fun for me. Mr. Harrington. I thought he was, every time we went to that body of students and like he's just like, I guess we're going to Rome or whatever. Like, I just keep getting lucky. This is incredible. Like he played that so well. Like he was there's plenty of levity and plenty of funny stuff in this movie and in most Spider-Man movies, but like he stood out to me as like the funniest thing in this movie for sure.
Yeah,
He was really great.
Yeah,
they nailed the comedy element in this movie. One of the funniest Spider-Man movies out there,
for sure.
Like,
I will say the second teacher fell flat. Like it was perfect. Like every time, like he was teed up so well to be that like teacher who didn't care, but like all of his lines kind of sucked. I'm like, dude, you're really. And I think it was writing, not execution, because that guy's funny as hell. Yeah. But like, right. Yeah, it's just nothing he said really landed for me. It was the other teacher, Mr. Harrington, stole the show.
Dude, I obviously knew what was coming when I watched this last night, but I had a spit take again, even though I knew it was coming, when he's freaking posing with the camera, trying to do selfie,
yeah,
and it falls into the water. Like
really good,
so good. Oh my gosh! Or even on the plane. Oh, the Sabres only won 4-3. Oh my gosh!
Oh, that's scary.
Anyway,
that's almost my bad.
I don't know. Oh, that's gosh. All right. Lost my train of thought there. When they're on the plane and the allergy thing happens, and the way he stands up, perfume allergies are nothing to joke about. Like, it's so good, man.
Yeah, and then he drops he sits next to Peter, and then he drops the line about his wife faking the blip.
It might be one of the best lines in the whole movie. They had a funeral and everything. Right?
He's like, it was fake. Well, the funeral was real. Really good. Really good.
Oh man, you're making me like this movie more. I hate you guys.
Dude, I told you, JT.
John
texted me.
John
I think I
Spider-Man.
texted John, and I was like, "We're gonna make JT excited about this movie."
Yeah,
but we'll see.
Right. The reason I was worried about JT and his opinion, because I knew he just did that Spider-Man rewatch a couple weeks ago or months ago, and he still has the same opinion. So, whatever.
Well, it's okay. No big deal.
Spider-Man Reviewed.
That moment. So, is there a favorite moment for you in the movie, John? Why don't we go first to you this time?
You got the easy one, so I'm taking the easy one now. It's the moment where Peter visits the warehouse and nothing is real, and it's just some of the cool. He goes down this huge rabbit hole of Mysterio hallways and all these crazy set pieces and a zombie Tony Stark and all the this huge guilt trip, What an incredible, we can talk all day about how incredible the effects and the choreography and the set pieces are in this movie. Like, they are so creative and so good in that moment where he's just lost in this fake world with the projectors and going down all these different paths and these doors. Which is pulled right from the comics. He's in a Mysterio haunted house, a fun house, Mysterio's fun house, right? Like, that's straight up like what Mysterio does in Spider-Man 2, the Insomniac game. He runs fun houses, and that's what Peter gets put through. But yeah, the zombie Peter, Tony Stark, like the guilt trip, and like even the end of it, you think you're at the end, you're outside, and Nick Fury's here to save the day, and all of a sudden it's not Nick Fury. It's another layer after layer, twist after twist. I think so cool.
That was I told myself when I watched that, one of my favorite scenes as well, but just it felt like Wanda taking over almost, right?
For sure.
It's just crazy how it made me still think it was more real, but like every time I watched it. Every time.
JT, any moment stand out for you for this?
Nothing. No. When Peter finally embraced the Peter Tingle, he grabs that gun off of Mysterio, and that everybody knows about the Spidey sense, right? So just to see him finally embrace it and really use it. We always got hints of it in the other little hair standing up or things like that. Obviously, Infinity War, his arm, he sees the hair stand up, but fully using that, and it was cool to see.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I'm gonna say, I agree with those points, but J.K. Simmons, man, most important post-credit scene ever, maybe in an MCU movie. Seeing him was like the start of what we were. So that, I think that's one thing Phase 4 and Phase 5 have done well in the MCU. Credit where it's due. It's more moments like that with J.K. Simmons, where we've seen actors come back from other iterations of these movies, or even, I would say, like the Netflix shows, right? With Charlie Cox, like coming over, like that's a good trend.
Before this, that wasn't possible. The MCU had such rigid rules. There was no, we're gonna bring back this. First of all, Disney didn't own Fox yet, so that was a big part of it for the X-Men stuff. But like, they didn't blur the lines. Like, their Spider-Man was their Spider-Man. They were separated from the Sony universe. Like, it was so rigid. Like, this is our story, right? So to see that cameo at the end, J.K. Simmons pop up as J. Jonah Jameson, like, oh my God, like, we're spoiled now to look back and think of how insane that was.
And there's something to be said for keeping it kind of tight like that. I like that, but they did it at a high level for so long. We were ready for this, and we're ready for the multiverse and all the, the stuff that was to come in Phase 4 and 5. And I think they're doing a nice job with it for the most part. Well, we'll get into some of those movies, but to me, that is it.
It's huge. And even that one is not a multiverse thing. That is just them recasting, the J. Jonah of this world as the same character or as the same actor, because he's just the perfect J. Jonah Jameson. Right. So like,
I mean, it could be with No Way Home. You don't know, right? Like,
yeah, I guess
with the multiverse stuff we get there.
Right.
Just saying.
Right.
But, all right. I'm going to get, before we rank these, I'm going to get to just some of my bullet points here, some funny moments, some nice moments that stood out. We talked about the pressure and expectation of this being the epilogue to Endgame. It's funny because, like, everyone talked about Thanos and what had happened there, and we didn't know what to call some of those events, and we referred to it as the snap. Well, they came back and they're like, well, no, we're going to call this the blip. And I love that the movie starts off right away with the amazing student videos, by the way. Like, they're so good.
So funny. They get the Getty image watermarks on some of them. Like,
yeah. And how they really, they don't shy away from it. They're like, hey, audience, we know you all just saw Endgame a few months ago, maybe a few weeks even in some cases. It's still in theaters, but you're coming and seeing Spider-Man now. And this is how it ties in. And I thought that was a really nice transition.
They had to do that. Like, they had to show us how the world works, because like, it's the questions we were all asking. Like, what happens when half the world has been gone for 5 years? Like, do they just pop back up where they were? How does it happen? They give us those answers in like the coolest, most Spider-Man way.
They really do. Let's talk about Aunt May and Happy.
Oh, I love it.
I think it's so good. It's Jon Favreau at his finest there. They had the perfect amount of awkward chemistry there, right?
Yeah, I almost picked Jon Favreau, Happy Hogan, as my non-titular character, because he brings it in this too. He's so funny.
They're so good. I love the way they interact and the clear awkwardness that stems from it for Peter being in that situation.
I love how much Favreau just loves that character. You can just tell.
Yeah, for sure.
Just, it's such a minor character in the grand scheme, and even him appearing in What If. Right?
Yeah,
he voiced a What If character, right?
He did, yeah. He did. He voiced the Happy, yeah.
I mean, he's just such a big part of the MCU and Star Wars, and it's just like, hey, I'll just be Spidey's little mini sidekick now. Like,
I think he is Happy. I think like that's who he is, like, as a person. Sure. I don't even think he's acting. Like, if I think Jon Favreau, I've seen him in so many movies. Like, that is a lot of Christmas movies actually, but that is like authentically who that person is, I think.
Right. No, for sure. I agree.
Another thing that nods to the bookend, right? He started this thing with Iron Man 1, and he gets to be here for the very end of this phase.
Just watching him just build Saga.
Oh, that moment when he's building the suit, and we get the reflection, and Pete being in way over his head, and missing Tony, and then ultimately pulling himself back up, and that line is like, you get the suit, I'll get the music. Back in Black plays, dude. Are you kidding
Yes.
me?
Goosebumps.
Oh,
Shit.
That was my other moment. That was my other moment of the movie. When that happens, the legacy that moves on there, it's just beautiful. It's so
yeah.
well
And
executed and it's authentic.
to see Happy watch Peter tinkering around, and he's like, "Yo, that's Tony, man. That's Tony."
It's so sick. It's so sick.
Damn it. I hate you guys for doing this to me.
Such a good
Oh,
movie,
you're welcome.
dude.
And speaking of which, so I'm showing the cover here. I love the cover art here. This is the backside of the 4K.
Yeah.
Got one of the murals there with Iron Man, but I love that he's everywhere. I know, again, some people have issues with it. To me, it's silly.
What?
Iron Man and Peter in this universe are a tandem. That's a big deal. So to see this this mural everywhere, to even have him joke and say, like, I see his face everywhere, you know, and to have him turn and be right there on the wall. The legacy, especially post Endgame, is again beautifully done.
Yeah, the we didn't get much like in-universe stuff throughout the Infinity Saga. Like we get to see like them sitting down on the flight, and like the Iron Man movie, the story of Iron Man is like an in-flight movie. Like that's just stuff that like you can only really do when you slow things down. You've gotten to your climax and you're at this epilogue point, and you've just got time to like just tell us like how this universe works. How does it, like, what's a day in the life look like? I don't know. I think they just do such a good job with that.
The world's finally at peace, right? And
Right.
Peter is, in a sense, and he can finally be that independent
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
we're gonna answer a bunch of those questions, like how this
Right.
universe works, like how do they deal with that, and like here's that
Right.
slice of life stuff. Here's that Tony Stark cheesy movie on the in-flight screen.
So good, so good, so real. Again, I had the note, and I'm going to say it again because it's worth talking about again quickly. The teacher's wife pretending to blip will
So
never
funny.
not be funny. That is a spit take to end all spit takes. Ned's bachelor plan. Ned is great in this movie.
That's really good
Babe,
too.
it's so good. They're so painfully cheesy, and it works so well. Just the way that they like accidentally touch hands on the plane. Like she can't stand the sight of him. He's awkward. And then coming off the plane, they're like an old married couple.
Yep,
That's one of my favorite little subplots of this movie.
it's really funny.
So good.
Betty's great.
We talked about him already, but Jake Gyllenhaal, I said, is the ideal post Endgame villain. His stakes are just right. They're just right. What better motivation than to be pissed off at Tony Stark, right? The gift that keeps on giving here.
100%.
Yep.
Aunt May saying, "Who's that guy you were with, Mr. Strange?" That's always funny. Getting his name wrong. Sam Jackson, I love this stupid moment, but he says, he said you wouldn't get that because it wasn't a Star Wars reference. And of course, I'm like, Mace Windu is saying that. Oh my gosh.
It's cool.
You know?
Oh, we didn't talk about the fact that like that's not I can't think of his name. You literally just said it's not Nick Fury.
It's
Like,
not Nick Fury.
That's a scroll. Nick Fury's been off world since blank. Like yeah.
What do we think about that?
It's cool. It's interesting to like look back. I mean, like it kind of sucks because Secret Invasion was so bad. Like
So bad.
it was like the most
Really what it was for, right?
it was the most worthless piece of MCU content I think we've ever gotten from my perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, for us to like know what that is now and like what could have been, like you had like one of the such a fun movie, the epilogue to the Infinity Saga. You planted this Nick Fury that we didn't realize wasn't Nick Fury at the time, and for us to get that reveal later, and it really does not mean anything because like the scroll stuff just wasn't fun or meaningful or useful at all.
Could have meant more. It's one of the best
It should
comic
have
lines
been
ever.
everything. It should have been that could have easily been the next phase. Like they didn't have to skip the king. They could have easily done scroll
That
stuff.
That alone.
I can't believe that failed. Like, I can't believe it was so the opposite direction. And
dude.
The seed was planted perfectly because seeing that at the end of the movie, it's funny, but it added like this sense of dread almost to I'm like, oh my gosh, that's not him. So now I'm questioning a lot of things. Was so-and-so a Skrull, right? Like it gave the perfect amount of intrigue. It was almost like when Infinity War ended and we're like, hey, who survived? Who
Right.
really didn't? Like there was that debate for a year.
The
And
door
it was
was
just such a
open.
perfect time too, with the blip and or the 5-year gap and all that. Like easily
Yeah,
act as
who
if they
actually
never
came
blipped.
back? Right.
Who actually came back? Were they like Rhodey? Were still up in the air. What's oh god, it was so bad. That series.
It's really frustrating.
Either way, like it's just
Yeah,
Yeah,
they set it up so well. And that really has nothing to do with this movie at all. But like that's just kind of like a casualty
Yeah.
of the way that plot was set up. But fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they had a chance to, like, where my God, where Civil War broke up the Avengers to set up the failure with Thanos. Secret Invasion could have been what set up the failure with Kang, right? In my opinion, it
Yeah, you're
really could
right.
have been.
That could have been
Destroyed
a
the
thing.
Avengers, no camaraderie, everything, all of it in
It wasn't just
their own
small
foot.
scale. It was so bad.
Yeah, it
It
wasn't.
was so bad.
In like,
Huh?
especially with the perspective is like they set it up so well. There was like the door was open in so many like perfect places for us to ask these like really
100%.
interesting questions. It just didn't matter.
Really interesting time, but I'm happy we got this pause here. We're just getting Deadpool this year, so we got some time to
Yes.
catch our breath and get things back
Just
on track.
reset.
Yeah.
Um,
For sure.
I'm optimistic as always.
I just want Deadpool to kill everyone.
Same. We talked about it. Quentin Beck teases the multiverse, saying Earth 616. Peter has a worry that the whole world is going to know who he is, which obviously teases the end of this movie and then kind of sets up No Way Home. Oh my gosh, dude, the glasses. Edith, even dead, I'm the hero. That's the most Tony Stark thing I've ever heard in my life.
Really good.
I love that so much. So many callbacks to Iron Man. One we talked about. I loved Zendaya's performance as MJ. The Mysterio dialogue towards the end, John. I think we're talking about in that simulated setup when he's one-on-one with Peter. That feels like a video game to me. Like, that's a weird thing to say. I mean it in the best way, but like, imagine your video game antagonists and some of their dialogues or spiels. That felt ripped out of a video game to me, and it translates beautifully to the big screen.
I'm with you. I can see where you're coming from there. Yeah.
And then obviously Mysterio plays a fun subplot in the most recent Spider-Man 2 video game. So there's some similarities with that character there. Happy speech on being Iron Man's replacement. And then, of course, the subsequent tinkering by Peter, that resembled Tony with the music, as we talked about, just absolutely chill-inducing. The first MCU movie without a cameo, of course, from Stan Lee. Tough that he passed away. We did get the CGI version of him in Endgame, but that was on my mind as I was watching this, that he was able to be in those prior 22 movies still, for the most part. And then J.K. Simmons to round it out. And that's all I had on my notes. Before we get to ranking this, is there anything from either of you that we failed to cover or that we wanted to bring up at all?
So we went through almost everything I had as well. The only thing that I had left to say is that like John Watts is the GOAT of end credits songs and just end credits in general. When Vacation plays, dude, it just so perfectly sums up like how I felt about this movie and like wraps it up on such a fun note after dropping that bomb that is the J.K. Simmons, like, oh, it just goes into the Vacation. Yeah, that's the last thing. Like, what a cool way to end the movie. He did the same thing for Homecoming, and again with No Way Home. Like, 3 is the perfect number. Are you kidding me?
I would argue, we've talked about it. We've done smaller scale videos and TikToks on this, but there's a good argument that this is the MCU's best trilogy.
I would love to really record an episode like after maybe once we catch up, we sit down and like really have that conversation. We do a full episode on like what's the best trilogy
after Deadpool. We should.
I agree.
Not an MCU trilogy though. Deadpool.
No, I'm sorry.
Just after,
just in general. Got it. Yeah, just time
including
wise.
that. Yeah.
Got it.
Although the Netflix series are now canon, so who knows? We'll see what happens.
I mean, like it's with a multiverse. This conversation is canon in the MCU. It's literally everything.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, Deadpool's coming from his universe, probably. And, Deadpool kills Fox universe.
JT, is anything else that we missed or anything that you wanted to discuss?
No. I'm a little shell shocked right now. You guys have kind of turned me the other way. To where I thought this was gonna go. I cannot be just blunt, right? I had it like bottom 5. So
that's crazy, dude.
Let's talk through the rankings.
Just wait till Love and Thunder.
It's not there anymore.
Just kidding.
We're not
Luke
doing
Skywalker
that.
here.
Right?
This is not going to go the way that you thought it would. All right, John, I'm going to pass it over to you to kind of walk us through this exercise. We'll wrap up the episode on that. If you're live with us still to this point, we appreciate you. Hang out after the show. we are also going to do an episode of Busy Sticks, our all video game podcast. But John, going to pass it to you now.
It's pretty straightforward. We've got some rankings here. I just need to quickly put Spider-Man Far From Home here in text form. Let's just copy the Incredible Hulk and call this Far From Home. So it is very simple. We've got to figure out where this thing goes. We'll move it up and up the ranks, and it will only move up if two of us think it's better than the movie that comes before it. I don't think I wanted to start, somewhat low. I can't believe you were really going to go bottom 5. Where's a realistic place to have this conversation? Like
above Captain Marvel.
Okay.
Sure.
I was going to say right around Captain Marvel would be fair.
Okay. You think that's fair? Wow.
Yep.
All
so
right.
To start.
I know. I understand.
Completely honest, I had it at the new 8. I was going to drop it, put it above Ant-Man and Wasp, and that's it. At first.
Dude.
You're crazy.
Behind Thor, the first Thor movie.
No, above it. Wait, do I have the right? I'm looking at the right one, right? You said.
I don't know.
Thor
What am I
would be
looking at?
19. Ant-Man and the Wasp would be 20.
I have Ant-Man and Wasp at 18 in mind. Hold on.
Yeah, you might have an old one. It's in
John
the
send.
yeah. I'll just at you in the
Well, that's what I'm
Geekiverse
looking at
thread.
right now. Yeah.
The picture I took?
Sorry, guys.
Oh, it's all good. I was wondering how you got a
No,
different
I'm looking
ranking.
at the Discord, but I think
Oh,
that's
that's
from March of
why.
last year.
Yeah,
Are still being
yeah.
in there, my bad.
Yeah, just pull
Yeah,
your phone.
so-
It's in the chat, or like it's in our Geekiverse text message thread.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
I would have had it. Yeah. Just above Thor
Wild.
initially. Not anymore though. Above Captain Marvel to start.
I'll tell you this. This conversation got me really excited and bumped this up as well.
All right. Well,
But I was on a different wavelength than JT.
Yeah, no, you're
Yeah.
right. As low as me, I bet.
all right. Let's start there. So who's gonna put this above Iron Man 2? I certainly will.
Yeah.
All 3 of us. Doctor Strange.
Yep.
Yeah.
All 3 of us. Ant-Man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All 3 of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Iron Man 3.
Oh, now it's getting dicey. I'm gonna have JT go first.
That's a yes.
Oh, all right,
Wow.
all right.
Remember, when we look at ranking, there are movies that I would have already had above, right? So
of course,
I'll
that's-
easily go above Ant-Man, but or Iron Man 3, for example, but maybe not Ant-Man that
Yeah.
more personally.
For sure.
You know,
It gets
It's-
tricky.
it's hard.
It gets tricky
Right.
because they're
It's
not
a mixture of all of us, right?
Yeah, we get to the point where
I will, however, just so you know, be staying at above Iron Man 3. It will not go above Iron Man for me.
Okay, so you put it above Iron Man 3. I also do, for what it's worth. So it does at least move above that. But for the record, Joe, would you have put it above Iron Man 3? I know you like that movie a lot.
No, I did above 3.
Oh, I know. I just want to know. You and I, it will go above that because you and I both did. But I just want to know if Joe would.
Understood.
This is where, like I said, it gets dicey for me. I really, really like Iron Man 3. I think it is the best Iron Man movie. I know.
I do too,
Rashawn
actually.
came around too, by the way.
I do too.
But
I would love to redo that ranking because I agree with you now.
that might be a snap or a blip for a later time. But regardless, yes, I would put this above Iron Man 3.
Interesting. Okay, so I think that means you would also put it above Iron Man 1 then, right?
Correct.
Naturally.
Yep.
JT, you've dropped off as well already, right?
Not a chance in hell.
Yeah, 100%. This is better than Iron Man 1. 100%. So I'm with you there. I'm liking the way this looks right now. Joe, Winter Soldier.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go. Also above
You
Winter
shitting
Soldier.
me?
Yeah, me and
Stop.
if you're somehow
You guys don't like it though.
it's not that
you
we
guys
don't
don't like it.
it's not that we don't like it. It's not that we
You
don't like
don't
it.
like it. Stop
I like
it.
Winter Soldier a lot,
It's
but
a really
people
good movie.
act like it's Endgame.
Yes,
It's
for
not.
sure.
It's not Endgame, but
Dude.
nobody ever. No, who
No.
thinks Endgame? Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
There
I'm
are
exaggerating.
no, you're not.
People
No,
talk about it like it's the best MCU
100%.
movie, and it's not close.
There are
I would never
thousands
say
of
that.
people that think it is the best MCU movie because they have this some kind of like bizarre take that it's like this higher echelon espionage movie, and it's just like it's good, and yes, it is that, but it's not that good. Like Winter Soldier's
never said that.
awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Guys,
Okay.
here's the
Fair.
thing. It was a big step up from the first Cap.
For sure.
And think about it. This is right off the heels of Avengers. So we are like Captain America hysteria right now. We love this guy.
Yeah.
He's just established himself. Everyone's in love with Chris Evans. I'm fine with all that. But that, I think, is part of why Winter Soldier was like, it's the best. It's better than Avengers. All like it goes down the list.
Yes.
It's not better than I think a lot of the movies on this list. So
Far From
the
Home
best
being one of
compliment
them.
I can give it-
Wouldn't Far From Home be dealing with the Endgame effect then? And to your point, right?
It very much could, JT.
So
But we
to be
are
fair.
5 years removed, is what I'm saying. Like,
no, I get it for sure, but
so I don't think, at least personally, my hype has anything to do with it. But to say Winter Soldier, as it stands now, is the 12th best movie, that is a good compliment because Winter Soldier is a good movie.
It's a great movie.
It just means everything ahead of it is really freaking good.
Yeah.
oh, I would never put it where other people are saying it. Trust me, but
Yeah.
you know, I
Like,
think it's better Far From Home.
There's
That's
a
wild.
lot of people that think it's like the best or top 3 MCU movie. Like that's where I'm
Never-
like,
never
what
that.
are we talking about? It's really, really good,
Never that.
but it's, you know,
I mean, at
top-
the time, maybe like
I
when
mean,
it came out.
yeah, it was probably the 10th movie that came out. Oh, sure.
Exactly right. It was 3
Right.
out of 10. Sure.
Okay, so Joe, we both have it over Winter Soldier. This is where I think I lose you here. Avengers: Age of Ultron. Do you think it's better than Age of Ultron?
No.
Interesting. So that's where it stays. It stays at 11. I would have put it above Age of Ultron. I
This
think.
is really difficult. That's a
It's-
really difficult conversation for me.
it's-
I think Ultron is better than most people give it credit for. That's not affecting my ranking. But if I really, really just think about those movies together, you could probably flip a coin. But I'm going to keep Age of Ultron above it.
I'm right there.
Funny
with you.
enough, I personally think, real quick, Avengers for me every time I watch it gets worse, and I think Ultron's better.
Dude,
So
it's so funny because we're all like, I think all 3 of us are on the same page where we think that Age of Ultron actually is at least a more enjoyable movie to watch nowadays than the first Avengers. But this is our list, and we have Avengers ahead of it. Just funny, regardless the way things change.
I know,
But
it's
even in the same token, Joe and I both think that Iron Man 3 is the best Iron Man movie, and we don't have it as the best Iron Man movie on our list.
I know.
It's funny how the more you rewatch these and the more you reflect and like years go by, you really start to think like, no, like that's the one is sticking with me 6-7 years later more. Like that's the one that, like, when I think about Iron Man, yeah, Iron Man 3 is the best movie for me. But
Listen, you get away from the hype of them, so there's a little less bias when it comes to recency. That's not always the case, but it helps you kind of sort through it a little bit more. What really sticks? What stands the test of time? Like I say it all the time. We're probably a few years away from it still, but at some point, Last Jedi is going to be considered a masterpiece.
it is.
Call me crazy.
You're
Different
not.
discussion.
I have this like this feeling that whenever I don't know how do I put this. So it might sound dumb but when you first watch the movie that come out, obviously it's the hype and you're more focused on the driving plot of the saga or whatever's going on in the MCU. Right? When you rewatch it, or at least for me, I'm looking at how good of a movie it is. I look at it as a siloed movie, CGI, character development, all like I look more into it.
Yeah, more so how it stands on its own. Like it makes sense because you're not theorizing of how how it's going to set up the next movie because you know how that goes. So like there's that's a good
It's
point.
a disservice, right? Like when you first watch it, it's almost a disservice to watch it. In a sense, but,
for sure.
The rewatch definitely.
But hey, that's where it lands. We've got Spider-Man: Far From Home as our new number 11. Not quite cracking the top 10, but right there on its heels, and I'm happy with that. Like I said, I love this movie. I think I'm the highest on this movie. Joe right there behind me, if anything. But I'm happy with that. I really like. You look at these 10 movies in front of it, the coveted top 10. Like when we say MCU, those are the 10 movies that flash through my head. You know that's the best of the best. So especially now going into what we're kind of jokingly calling season 2 of MCU Reviewed with this next slate of movies, it's gonna be fun to see what can crack that top 10 if anything, and what can sniff it, because like Joe, we kind of talked about how it's crazy to have nostalgia for this show because we started it 2 years ago, 4 years. We started it 4 years ago. Sorry. And we last did it 2 years ago. So it's crazy to have nostalgia for something like that. But like we certainly have nostalgia for what is the Infinity Saga. Like we're talking about something that started in 2007 with Iron Man 1, right? 2007, right? Or 9?
I believe 2008.
Really? Oh yeah, 8. Eight. Okay, so yeah, right around there. Right. So we're talking 14 years. Like that's plenty of time to have nostalgia there. It's going to be interesting.
Time moves differently these days, especially
I do have
with
one
movies.
thing real quick though.
Go for it. You're
I'm
blipping?
putting Winter Soldier 100% over Far From Home.
Oh,
It's gonna kill it.
no, why would
It's
you
gonna
do
kill
that
it.
to us?
It's gonna kill it. It's doing it, baby. Snap it. Not a chance. It's
I'm
gonna
gotta limit
blow it
discussion.
out the water.
sick of this
Blow
movie.
it out the water. No.
All right, so JT's using one of his blips to put a poll out to see if we can
100%.
get Winter Soldier.
John sounds so miserable.
I understand. So I'm in between
I
what you
spelled Far
guys
From Home
hate,
wrong.
and then I'm in between what you guys hate and then what other people love. Right.
I'm
So
starting to
I'm not
resent
ever gonna say
Winter Soldier.
I'm okay. I mean, to put it back to at 11 doesn't. It's not like I'm trying to crack the top 10, right? I'm not nowhere near the top 5. I'm not that stupid. I just think it is. I mean, obviously, I think it's not better than Iron Man. So for me, it's easy to Winter Soldier, personally.
I think
But
Winter Soldier is going to win this one. Spider-Man has a lot of clout, and we do have also the benefit of No Way Home, so maybe people might associate that inadvertently. But I think Winter Soldier is going to win this.
like
maybe they-
emphasize, bold, italicized.
Maybe they think it's No Way Home.
Yeah,
because
that's
all,
Far From
literally
Home.
last night when I went to start my notes, I put NWH. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, hang on, that's not the movie I'm
Dude,
watching. Yeah.
I hope that happens. I hope people confuse these two. Joe,
Yeah.
we're finally in a safe space where you and I can do these rankings and get away with putting Winter Soldier so low, but it just
fine.
keeps getting popped back up. I'm so sick of it.
There's
I'll never
always
be
a
more
JT.
upset. I'll never be more upset than when we did Star Wars. We knew it was only going to last for a minute. I had this big spiel and monologue, and Tim frickin' interrupts me
I hate
and
it.
uses this Jedi mind trick before I can finish my sentence. I was
Didn't
like,
I do
can you
one
please?
episode and I used a mind trick and didn't show up again?
I don't
I'm
know.
pretty sure I did.
I hope so. That's the great story.
I feel like I did. Yeah,
for
so
Rogue
we'll,
One, I
we'll see
feel
where it
like.
goes. I think Winter Soldier's gonna
Yeah.
take the
So
cake.
again, to set the record straight, we put Far From Home at number 11. JT doesn't like that, so he's going to use his blip. We'll take it to the polls. If you want to vote on this, right after
He's
this,
so upset.
right after this episode goes live, that poll will be available on twitter.com at _Geekiverse. That's like the only social media we don't have the Geekiverse on. And the person who has
It's
that
the
account,
only one.
and that
I
the
told
person-
you, you got it.
they've been dormant for years. They literally haven't touched the account since like 2012. It's so frustrating.
We can't get it.
No,
we
it's
gotta hit
gone.
up Elon, see what's going on.
Seriously.
Different regime. That's right. Maybe
that
we
is
got
true.
a shot at it.
File an appeal. But yeah, so that's fun. So hop onto Twitter, get involved, and you can possibly affect the rankings, or don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it, sweetheart.
It's not a
Don't
big
worry
deal.
about it, sweetheart.
Oh man. Well, we're gonna wrap things up on this episode that now feels somber. If you're listening to
No,
how John is talking,
It's not that big of a deal. It's a good ranking regardless.
it is a good ranking, and that's what makes this so fun and spicy. Am I right? The MCU reviewed here. We talked about Spider-Man Far From Home. Had a great time doing it, boys. It's like we never missed a beat. Love having this discussion with both of you. We'll wrap it up, and anything that you want to plug at all before we sign off. John, we like video games. We talk about video games, so that might be one thing. But anything to plug for the Geekiverse and social media at all?
Yeah, that's a good tee up. So we've got Busy Sticks. So along with MCU Reviewed coming back, Busy Sticks, our video game podcast, is also back. We're gonna aim to do that one weekly. I'm sure we'll miss a few here and there if we've got nothing to talk about, but that's the goal at least. We're gonna get up, probably 3 to 4 episodes up a month. So we kicked things off with a bang last week. We did our top games of 2023. That is a nice long beefy conversation about 4 of our top 10 lists, and it's a fun we crushed that episode. It was so much fun to talk about, and like we had some great engagement with the chat. That's a fun one to listen to if you're into video games. Also worth noting real quick that we've our podcasts, they all have their own feed now. So if you've been a long time listener, we've used to just dump all of our podcasts into one podcast feed called the Geekiverse, which was fine, made sense for the time. But we're at the point where we're kind of evolving a bit, we're expanding a bit. So now we have individual podcast feeds for each show. So if you want to watch the MCU Reviewed, you just search the MCU Reviewed in your favorite podcast feed, and it's got its own feed. You'll find it. It's on everything: Apple, Spotify, Pocket Cast, all that stuff. So yeah, that's fun. It's in a new home. So again, if you've been subscribed to the Geekiverse feed, that's for all intents and purposes, that's retired. Each show has its own feed now.
Love it. I thought you were going to say Spotify there, and I was curious what
I did.
that was.
I for sure said Spotify. I went Pocket
New
Cast,
platform.
Pocket Cast, and Spotify put together.
Credit where it's due. John has done a ton of work to make that happen for us behind the scenes. John really produces all these shows for us, makes us look pretty. So good job, John. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for making us more searchable and easier to find, whether it's on the podcast or it's on all the work you did on Instagram this week. We couldn't do it without you. So thank you very much for that. JT, final wrapping thoughts here. Two things come to mind. Your opinion has changed on Far From Home a little, which, your opinion is your opinion, but I'm happy that you enjoyed it more. And then second of all, buddy, Hogwarts Legacy was well represented. All 4 people had it on the ballot for Game of the Year last week.
I'm proud of you all. That's
all
for
you.
It's for me. The highest selling game of last year.
So sick, by the way.
Because that means
to
something.
dethrone a Call of Duty. Like,
dude,
that's cool.
That's amazing.
It was, I did not expect it to be what it was. I'll put it that way. And this is the total optimist when it comes to anything related to Hogwarts world, right? But it did great, in my opinion. It happened to be in the best year for it to come out, right? Like, I don't know, you guys know more than me. Bad year. Like 19, 17, 16. I'm not sure. 19 or 18 was amazing. I know that, but
we haven't had 19 was the last year that was just kind of okay. That was the year Jedi Fallen Order came out.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the year where like nothing competed with Jedi because like the Sekiro I think came out too and people really like those FromSoft games, but like it wasn't a banger. It wasn't
Hogwarts
a banger.
Could have competed with Jedi.
It would have been on the ballot. It would have been on the ballot at least.
Right. 100% on the ballot. But yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate you doing that.
Anything for you, JT. Again, you can catch us live on YouTube and all our videos. If you missed any, go back to youtube.com/thegeekiverse and check that out. We stream all of our shows live at twitch.tv/thegeekiverse. And of course, you can listen to our podcasts on services around the globe. I recently, if I could do a plug, did a video that is Marvel related for our charity stream Geeks Give Back in December. I got together with my good buddy Jeremy Shields. He produced a video. I played the drums. I made up a mashup of some of the songs from Guardians of the Galaxy Awesome Mix Volume 1 and 2, songs and movies that are very near and dear to my heart. We threw together a video to raise really awareness for that event. That just happens to be a fun annual byproduct of it. So if you wouldn't mind, check that out. You can search it. It is exclusively on the Geekiverse's YouTube page. Again, that's youtube.com/thegeekiverse.
I'm going to hop in that we have hundreds of videos on the Geekiverse. We've got hundreds of videos on this YouTube channel. That is without a doubt the best video on our channel. That is the video that displays the most talent, and I'm not going to say the most work went into, but like it's just the most impressive thing that has ever come out of the Geekiverse. And I'm telling you, you need to go watch that video. It is so good.
That means the world, man.
Jaw dropping.
I really appreciate that. It's funny, we had it uploaded but not released, and John snuck a peek. He watched it, which I'm happy about.
No,
started building some hype, and then JT, I was like, "Do you want the video?" He's like, "Yeah, I want the video."
So I said, a lot harder to pull it out of you. You're just okay.
I couldn't help it. Once John saw it, it broke the ice, man. I had to let it go. But I knew JT.
Seriously, one of the coolest things ever.
No, greatly appreciated the hype factor that you guys had thrown behind it and put on social media. Meant the world to me. So thank you for your support. But yeah, go check that out. Stay tuned. If you're hanging around live, we're gonna have just a quick recess here, but then John and I are gonna be back with Busy Sticks. We're talking about our most anticipated video games of 2024. Interesting year coming up for sure. So we'll see what happens. Hogwarts 2. Just kidding. For JT, for John, I'm Josiah. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your night.